This is the Segovia Show.
I'd like to welcome Joe Weil to the Segovia Show. Joe, the new CEO of Unplugged, welcome to the program. How you doing?
I'm great, Andres. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here.
Dude, before we get into anything else, tell us where you come from and how you ended up working at Unplugged.
Sure. So I have been at Apple for the last decade until May of this year.
Mm.
And during that time, I led sort of like 0 to 1 projects at Apple, a special projects oriented team creating a ton of fun stuff for iPhone and other platforms. And last summer, about a year ago, actually, I saw Erik on a podcast talking about Unplugged
Mm.
and this idea of a third platform, an alternative to Apple and Google, one that focused on privacy and customers' rights, really appealed to me. I initially reached out literally just in a friendly way to be like, hey, what you're doing is interesting. I want to give you a couple pointers about how to think about this space. Erik is a great guy and was very receptive. And here we are.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. So it wasn't that I thought he poached you some way, somehow from over there.
I mean, Erik's a pretty good salesman, but our relationship began. We started talking about this space. I think our minds got closer and closer around what was sort of needed here. And he's a really valuable person to have in the mix when it comes to his experience with cyber offense. It really helps him frame his perspective on cyber defense in a way that's really valuable.
Mhm.
That was it was a slow decision, but I was blessed to have time to make a decision. And we really kind of thought through, and I really took time to think like, all right, what do we really need to do to optimize this business and this product? And
Mm.
that all sort of came to a head in end of April, early May when I officially jumped over.
Okay. So when you stepped in, so it was to put a halt to some of the other orders. I saw like, oh, it's sold out, and by mid-July the next shipments would happen, and then later on I saw that by mid-September it'll happen.
So we've had a couple of tranches of releases. We released some devices in August, and we're returning to real time shipment in September.
Mm.
And at the same time, we are going live in Best Buy,
Yeah.
and we are firing up a U.S. production line, which we're really excited about. So there's a lot happening this fall.
Yeah.
Our main goal over the last number of months has been to kind of reset our trajectory as a product, both our basis of the experience and where we're heading in terms of our priorities. And there were a number of things that we turned down our focus on, and a number of things we turned up our focus on
Mhm.
in order to achieve two general goals, right? One, we want privacy to be something normal people can understand. So we want privacy features to be something that can clearly give benefit that a customer can understand. Whereas normally privacy you're like proving a negative.
Mm.
So we wanted to like bring those boundaries and protections to life to increase the value and understanding of what it's like to prevent, for say, for example, third-party tracking or things like this. At the same time, we wanted to reduce the number of hurdles that are involved in getting on the Unplugged platform. So that's meant fixing some things. It's meant filling some holes, some gaps that we had. And our goal, and we're really getting there, is to have the experience of adoption be quite effortless, like getting on a normal phone, any other phone you've had in the past with minimal changes, but to have like the one shift be clear differentiation and benefits when it comes to increased privacy.
Yeah, good. That was primarily the focus on my early coverage of Unplugged after getting into understanding the mission. How I got acquainted with Unplugged was because Eric Prince saw a video that I did asking, well, what is the Unplugged phone? Because normally, whenever I see a new product, and it's usually targeted at the consumer base, some that I relate to because I'm part of that consumer base, I hate those gotcha phrases like patriot and privacy and just any buzzwords like that, because usually I look out for the snake oil salesmen, and if especially in tech. So when I saw this, I'm like, I hope it's not another one of these. So I done the video, and eventually I did reach out to the company through the support site. And after I submitted that, I got a reply from the CEO at the time, Ryan Patterson. So that was interesting. I'm like, is this really the CEO? So then they say, hey, Erik Prince saw your video, and he made us all watch it. So it's like you made some honest, like brokered assessments of what you did, and in response to that, we're going to do a whole new website and this and that. And then they offered to send me the phone. That's kind of a connection started and all that. And that's why they're only the second company, Unplugged. It's only the second company that I ever featured any tech review on that never asked, didn't even bring it up, to give editorial input into a review. So
Mm.
I that speaks volumes to me, because that means they're confident in their product and they want people to really give feedback on it. So that's why I got the first hands-on, the unboxing and review out there. But when I did my review, one of the things was I couldn't approach it normally because I knew who would adopt it, and it's those that want to believe in a third party platform but don't know what that entailed when it meant leaving the convenience of Apple and Google. So as someone that dealt with tech and has a bunch of other privacy focused OSs and the Google devices, um, I know how hard it can be. So I had to try to educate the audience about that. And I feel that those on Apple had the biggest uh, leap of faith to jump, just because Apple just doesn't want you to leave. So
Yes.
and that's what you're bringing to the experience. I think it's really important because you come from the Apple world, you know that better than anyone. So how, compared to like this Unplug 1.0 to what looks like the refreshed Unplug 2.0, how would that look like for an iPhone user adopting an Unplug phone?
Sure. Well, I said, back to, I think you put it well. And the way I was saying before is there's some things that I think were like could have been better that we had going that could have been better. And there were some things that were missing. So let's start with some things that could have been better. And then we'll talk about some areas we actually had to fill. So one area where we've made a huge leaps forward is in what we call the compatibility layer. And this is a layer of technology. We leverage micro G and have our own customizations as well. But this is a layer of our operating system that allows us to run almost any Android application. And as when you're running an Android app without Google Mobile Services, and I didn't know this. A lot of iPhone people don't know this. Google Mobile Services is like it's sort of like a de facto layer of Android. It's services that Google provides for free in exchange for all the information from the application to
Hmm.
provide services like notifications or maps, as an example. There are others as well, but payments anyway. But let's just talk about notifications and maps.
Hmm.
One of the challenges for us is we could run an app, like you take an app like Microsoft Teams, right? I could run Teams on my up phone. However, when it would go to send me a notification to say, hey, someone messaged you, it was expecting to use GMS to send that notification, Google Mobile Services to send me that notification. Now, we don't want to run Google Mobile Services on the phone because that means Google knows the content of my Teams notification.
Hmm.
So we leverage this capability that's in our compatibility layer, which routes the notification to an open source notification server. So we still get the notification, but we don't go that traditional route. Same thing with maps. We're able to, like if you use Airbnb and it looks to call a map, instead of bringing in Google Maps, we're able to bring in an open source third party application solution for maps. So these are examples of work that had to be done that dramatically increase the usability of almost any Android application. So that's one area where the difference from some apps having things like missing notifications to just everything working like normal has been a big area of progress. Similarly, when it comes to the App Center, and by the way, we call it the App Center because we don't want to monetize third-party apps at all.
Hmm.
Our business model has nothing to do with monetizing their sales to people on our platform. But in our App Center, before it was a huge feature of ours. The apps that you could download were from our servers. This is very important for us because many of us are concerned about how Apple and Google can remove apps if they're like politically inconvenient.
Yeah.
We think this is a big problem. So we wanted to have our own servers hosting the apps that our customers are using. Here was the challenge. we're a small company. We can only QA so many apps at a time. So we had maybe 7, 8, 10,000 apps on our store, and there's millions of apps.
Yeah.
And the problem would be you'd have these apps you need for these little situations like a remote control for a baby monitor or to
Hmm.
open a gate on your whatever, these little like IoT apps or a parking meter or whatever. And man, there's no way we can QA all those apps. So this
Hmm.
is another change we made recently that you're going to see in our release this September in just a few days. Um, is a change to our app center where you can see all the apps on our servers, which are by the way always going to be the most popular apps that our customers are using. But when you do a search, you will also see the full list from an open source library of all the other Android apps. So this is a really important expansion, again, when it comes to just being able to access and have successful compatibility with any app. So those are examples I would say of like areas that were working but needed to be enhanced to
Hmm.
really have like parity or certainly very near parity with a normal iPhone or Samsung experience. So we're really excited about that progress, and we think customers are going to be really happy because you just don't notice the friction that you would have seen, 6 months or a year ago on Unplugged. So that's one area. Pardon me. Go ahead.
Oh, no. So if you got more, please.
I can keep talking. So
Yes.
all we do is product and customers. We're kind of obsessed. So that's an area where I would say like some things could be tweaked and improved. Similarly, the camera is a journey with us, but we've taken some big steps to enhance the camera, and we're going to see a lot more enhancements there. But then there were other areas where we just didn't have solutions that I think customers really need. And a great example for this would be photo storage, photo and video storage, cloud storage. Most of us who've been, on an iPhone or any device for 10, 15 years, we have more photos and videos than our phone can hold.
Hmm.
And we're used to having a perpetual cloud backup that just takes care of that. We don't think about it. And I felt like this was a very important adoption challenge for our customers was they would sort of adopt the phone, but it would sort of remain a secondary device. It couldn't become their primary because again, some of these hurdles with apps or this issue of like missing cloud services, for example,
Hmm.
and other things. So these are areas where we think like a great, we're rolling out the solution as well in September. We have an awesome open source cloud storage product. So when you get the up phone, you can install an uploader app onto the Android or iPhone that you're coming from. Over a couple days, all your photos and videos move up. They just show up like magic in the new gallery app. It's great. You also get all your folders like favorites. And also our solution leverages machine learning on device to, you can name people and it'll identify them across your library and present you moments. So like here, here's my up phone. There's some cute pictures of my baby daughter,
Hmm.
right? So it'll say like, moments with Sophia, and I'll get like a nice little, carousel, just like I would on my iPhone. So this is an area where I think, again, there's some stuff we needed to smooth out, and there's other stuff where we just had holes in the offering. And you're going to see a lot coming to market presently. Like, so we have a very aggressive release schedule, August, September through the rest of the year. Things like a password manager. So a password manager baked in so you can bring your passwords over from iPhone. This is huge. And then, what a lot of people didn't realize, I didn't even realize when I first checked out my up phone, when I first got an up phone, is when you set it up, you can set it up in basically an iOS configuration. I can't believe I didn't know this. But I'm not used to Android, so I run my phone like an iPhone. My icons are shaped like iOS icons. I have the swipe gesture to leave apps and go across, the what we would call springboard at Apple, which I
Hmm.
get the launcher now. New
Yeah.
terminology for me. um, so I think what we're finding is that the gap is getting much, much, much smaller. Um, the remaining items we have that are happening right now are RCS compatibility and wallet application. So I think we're going to see those major hurdles getting crossed in the coming months, and we're very excited about those features.
That sounds awesome. And when it respects to the wallets, we're talking about crypto too.
Yeah, we are really interested in this space. So I will say yes, in the fullness of time, our vision is crypto is central to our vision. We are really eager to pursue solutions for customers that allow them to have the same freedom, Fourth Amendment protections that we want them to have with their information, with their finances. So, our big vision here is just that these platforms we've adopted, which are, by the way, great platforms. Like, I was at Apple for a long time because there's like no company better at this. I get
Mm.
it. They're great products.
Yeah.
However, they're built on a foundation that is kind of like outside of how our Constitution works.
Mm.
And I see that personally as a civilizational risk. Like, we cannot, we're sort of operating in two parallel countries. We're in the
Mm.
United States as citizens, and then we're living half of our lives, 8, 9, 10 hours a day on smartphones, where for the most part, our data does not have Fourth Amendment protections, where we're on two platforms that have both demonstrated a willingness to silence speech that is inconvenient, the financial elements as well, financial tracking, debanking, all of this stuff. So, we really want to promote, and we think it's very possible and inevitable, and we want to help make this happen for Americans to be able to have the convenience of these new smartphone technologies without these huge risks of, dystopian speech codes and, I mean, the data harvesting, huge issue that
Oh yeah.
we're spending a lot of time on this, right? Is really understanding like the downside of this smartphone advertising ecosystem is that the government can easily access and purchase data about where all of us have been and what we're doing. This is ultra risky.
Yeah.
And one of the things we've been talking about a lot and working on a lot is like, at the foundation of our republic, this Bill of Rights was designed to protect us. But one of the core things that we forget is our founders designed the post office for this reason, right? The whole idea of the post office, and this is in their debates, the whole idea of the post office was that for the republic to thrive, citizens needed a way to communicate confidentially and to get the news via the post. And the rules of that were written as early as 1792, the Post Office Act, right? Which basically said it's a federal felony to open someone else's mail,
Mm.
and postal workers can't share any metadata or equivalent of what you're
Mm.
sending and receiving. And the opposite is happening now.
Exactly.
So we think this is very important.
Yeah, no, and that's what I said to the team over there, that I believe in the mission, and Unplug is stepping in at a time that it's more important than ever, because what Unplug is doing is nothing new. And I talked previously, and I think it was at the end of my review for my original review of the Unplug phone, where I read a review from now 11 years ago for something called the Black phone, and I just read the review, and if I didn't mention Black phone, everybody would have assumed I was talking about Unplugged. But it's because those guys were very early into this. At the time, there was still some of the mobile wars going on. Windows Mobile or Windows Phone variations were kind of on their way out, and BlackBerry also declined. Symbian was gone, and WebOS, they also faded away. But we had that, and people migrated more to iOS and Google simply because of the apps. And now, after a decade, and people realizing just how much has been monetized off us, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Apple, who used to be turned to privacy, now has gone completely the opposite, it feels. And then Google, also with their approach, with their recent announcement of basically they're not gonna permit unknown apps to be installed as of 2026. Not that they haven't uninstalled apps before, but this time to completely block them. It's like, wow. And not to mention they're locking down Android as of Android 16. So it's where everything's going, and Unplug popped in. I'm like, this is more important than ever. That's why I was invested in your success. And if I was honest about my coverage, and I was never paid for anything like that, and I wasn't looking for compensation, it was more like I want to see and give proper criticism where it's due, and also praise where they're getting it right. So I've seen what you guys have done now, at least a year and a half since I've been tuned to Unplugged, and I love the strategy you guys are doing, and I love the more focused approach that they're doing under your tenure.
Thank you so much, Andres. That's really it's exciting to hear that commentary, and we feel very aligned. And thank you. And it's encouraging. Yeah, I mean, I would say there are things that allow this opportunity to succeed today more than a few years ago, even. And that was that was part of my logic making this big decision, was like, all right, man, this has been tried before. Why is this different? Why is this different? Why now? Right? Why now is really the key question. And I think there's sort of, the way I think about it is like there's several factors on the why now. There's several forces that come together. Some of them are cultural, some of them are technological. On the technological side, why now? Number one, when these other attempts were tried, there was not ubiquity of apps. We now have an app for everything, and they're all cross-platform. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so that's big. Okay, that's big. So now the problem becomes just compatibility with apps, which is a solvable problem. It's a hard problem, but it's a solvable problem. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so that's one. Two, open source. Open source is an important movement that we are huge supporters of. You are going to see rapid fire release from us in open source and just this year remaining, like boom, 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 a lot. So we are big believers in open source, not just Android open source project, but I mean, my goodness, the layers of, we mentioned MicroG. Our photos product is based on an open source project that we're contributing to. So there's big, hard technologies, like big technologies that would take hundreds of engineers, many years, okay, which are now open source. And we see that as a tailwind for us. There's another important factor too, which is that when this was happening before, when companies looked into this before, we were still in an era of rapid innovation between every SKU. You know, the difference between iPhone 3, iPhone 4, iPhone 5, iPhone 6 were like big changes, right? That has largely stabilized. I think we see that. I'm not minimizing the engineering achievements of each new phone, but I
Mm-hmm.
think the customer experience deltas are getting smaller and smaller. And
Mm-hmm.
what that has resulted in is people are their what we call the refresh rate is slowed down dramatically from 1 to 2 years to 3, 4, 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these, I think, are technology trends that help us. I would describe those again as ubiquity of apps, open source, projects, big, diverse, powerful, significant, industrial strength open source projects, and the commoditization of the hardware. I think we're in a world where, like, whether you're on last year's chip or this year's chip, I can't tell the difference, and I'm very aware of these issues, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
I would say those are one area that I would see as tailwinds. Also, I think culturally, this is the right time. I'm not taking anything away from Apple and Google, which are, you know, I mean, we're talking about what is there to take away? We're talking about the two greatest companies. I mean, these are very impressive people doing amazing things.
Yeah.
However, in some ways, they're very aligned. They're different in some ways, and they're aligned in many other ways. And in the ways they're aligned, I think they've created another tailwind for us, which is a new market of people who want something different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that market has grown a lot after some tumultuous elections and COVID and just this feeling. And by the way, like I sympathize with people on both sides. It doesn't take long to look at my background to get what my personal sensibilities might be. But my personal sensibilities aren't really important here. An American who wants to go protest ICE, I might not agree with them. They should have the right to protest without the government knowing they were there because of their phone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, our forefathers fought and died for that right. Okay. So while I think we've all had reason to feel in the last decade, like, man, I do not want the Department of Justice and the tech company that makes my most personal phone connected. And I think they have gotten way too connected. And again, so how does that show up? That shows up in these questions about our data. What does the government know? What do they not know? I mean, you check out Byron Tao's book, you talk to Mike Yeagley, and it's pretty clear they know a lot about us through this purchasable data. And then we ask this question about, are we free to say what we think on these platforms? And for me, that sequence, it really started in 2018. I was at Apple. I did not think twice about it at the time when Apple kind of deplatformed Alex Jones. I did not think about it. I wasn't like a big Alex Jones supporter, but I was like, yeah, whatever. Oh, he's a little out of the norm. I didn't really think about it. What I
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize was that precedence was being set.
Yeah.
And, we saw that cancellation ladder get climbed parabolically, and then to me, a very important moment was the culmination in 2020 to 2021. Conservative voices were getting censored off all the social media apps. And then there was one app left that wasn't silencing them called Parler. And Parler was removed from iOS and Google and Amazon Web Services on the same day.
Yep.
And like it or hate it, you can have your own feelings about Parler. Like, in that moment, I think I'll put it this way. I think we were not meeting the promise of our republic. I will put that gently.
Yeah.
That is a gentle way to describe what happened that day. And I think, when I look at that, what do I see is like when there's a crisis, we all use whatever's at our disposal to achieve what we think the most important ends are to keep us safe.
Hmm.
And I think that's what we saw there. And I'm aligned with the founders of our country and the designers of our Constitution who had this core idea. At the core of their premise was that each human is too flawed to have power over another human.
Mm.
We will take advantage of, we'll have false motives, we'll come up with how we're helping everyone, we'll blah, 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 we'll have stories,
Mm.
but we all really want power and we need to be restrained from having power over each other. And I think that's at the heart of what we're doing is like we need to be living and experiencing the benefits of technology on a platform that's restrained, that's restraining people from having this subjugation power, which might feel soft and it might come with like nice emojis and whatever, but it's still what it is.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So anyway, I'll, you know,
No, I'm glad I let you speak because it really puts into perspective everything and where you're coming from and what you bring to Unplugged too. Yeah, because more people have been onto this. That's why the space has been getting more attention with OEM products, not just okay, buy a Pixel and just flash a privacy OS on it. Those projects, some of them, the popular ones like Calyx OS, they're basically suspended for now because of the big update that Google pushed for Android 16. And the other one, Graphene OS, is trying to reverse engineer Android 15 to keep going, but we don't know how long that's going to keep going either. So this kind of brings up one of my questions that I was wondering, how would this affect you guys? You guys have more control over this because you have
we
the
do,
hardware and the software.
we
So
do, we do.
will this impact you?
Yes. Yeah, because we're designing and building the hardware, we have access to Android immediately with all device manufacturers. So this is an example of a big risk paying off. Because you're correct, there's other models, and by the way, I applaud those guys. There's some very talented people, and they're doing good work. And we think this is the right bet. We think that to really do this, um, we need to be able to build the entire stack. Um, and yeah, so this access to Android is an example of one of these benefits. There are others as well. Just even a simple thing like our phone having a physical off switch. I know that
Mm,
that sounds like such a small thing,
I know.
but to me, it represents a lot. It represents a lot. And, if you can't turn something off, like, is it really yours? That's something to think about. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
uh, so, yeah, for us, this is a reason to build our own hardware. Um, it does get, this a side issue here. A tangent is okay. If you're building the hardware, how are you building it? Who's building it? Where is that money going? That's a big, for us, there's sort of three major big ideas here. Um, Three big compromises that we've made with smartphones, right? Obviously privacy, we've talked about this, right? If I'm on a phone and the price of the phone is subsidized by my future use of the phone,
Mm,
who's the product here, right? So that's one.
mhm,
Two is, freedom of speech. And if I'm on a platform and I'm experiencing and getting all my news from a platform, and that platform has demonstrated a willingness to shut off news sources that it considers dangerous for me, which end up proving to be true later,
yeah.
that's concerning. But I think the third compromise that we're concerned about, and that I think people are ready to stop making, is this feeling that when I buy my phone, my money is going at best to some unknown foreign assembly line, and at worst to potentially a dehumanizing labor environment that we wouldn't want our worst enemies to live through, right?
Mm,
So for that reason, we're investing in bringing production back here, which is going to be a long journey, brother. I mean, this is going to be many steps. First step is
yes.
assembly. We know we can mill our chassis here. We're very excited about some battery designers in the U.S. who might be able, so it's just going to be one step at a time. But we think these are the three areas that really matter, where we think we can do something different. And frankly, because we're small, we can do things in ways that big companies can't. So we're just going to lean into those lanes.
Yeah, and I think people should really be excited about your announcement here because you're a small company and you're prioritizing trying to bring this to be built here in the United States. Meanwhile, Apple announced that they moved from Chinese assembly to India assembly. It's like they're not even trying. It's like, well, who's going to pay for a $2,000 iPhone? That's also a good point, which kind of lends me to this. In bringing things over here, should we kind of anticipate that the unplugged phone, which some people did feel that it was a tall price to pay for the entry into this, but from the business side, I also get it. Would this also be a more expensive product built here in the United States?
Um, w- it will cost us more to make, and for now, we're going to absorb that into our margin.
Mm.
And we think that's the right thing to do for now. I don't know what, but let me tell you why. And when I say for now, that doesn't mean we're about to raise price. Like, don't read into that. I'm just saying
Okay.
I can just say for now because who knows. By the way, like I'm buying the camera from South Korea. If some tariff goes, who knows. So,
True, that's
but
true.
I can say the unit economics we can keep it under $1,000 and build it in the U.S. Though our labor cost goes up over $100 per phone. So we're gonna have to it's a challenge. Here's why we're able to make it work. And it goes back to something we were describing before, which is this tailwind of the slowing down, like the refresh rate slowing down because the hardware is similar year to year. Okay, when I hear Apple goes from China to India to I don't like. Apple is a marvel at these devices. Like they're really really good at this. Okay, and I think for people who value that, you know, good thing for you. The best company ever is doing that. Great. Um, Here's the thing. I don't think a lot of people care year to year anymore. So when I looked at this, and I'm working with our guys who are really smart, I'm like, guys, like we got to make it here. They're like, it's impossible. Stop asking. I'm like, but wait, let's look at it from here. Let's look at it from here. And eventually, we're looking at the factory floor because we build in Indonesia, right? So we're looking at like the nodes of the factory floor and what step is happening where and how many seconds it's taking, and they're right. Like I trust they're right. There's no way you can do it faster. I realized something though. When we looked over it, the way smartphone production works, it's all modeled after this idea that you're doing one SKU every year, a new big SKU or more than one big SKU every year. This is important. When you make all your phones, I mean, making these phones is really hard. It's like really hard. And keeping the yield above 98%, which for us, we need to do in order to, every percent down from that is huge loss, right? Financially. So you
Mhm.
got to keep it high so that the phones you make actually get sold. So you get paid back for the components that you invested to make the phones, right? All that.
Yeah.
But the way it works is, let's say you build phones for 2 months and then you spend the rest of the year selling them. Okay.
Mm.
It's very hard to train the talent to build the phones, and you're literally spending a month to 2 months of training just to do a month to 2 months of building
Mm.
because it's very hard to dial this in. Okay. So when we're looking at this, I'm like, wow, half of our labor cost is training
Wow.
every year. I go, well, no one really wants a new phone every year. So what if we just made the same phone all year round?
Mm.
And then when we pulled that pin out, the labor costs deflated and it didn't equal out, but it was within range. So we're able to bring it to the US because our production plan is to be able to build basically the same number of devices every month. The problem is I might end up with a wait list. Luckily, we have awesome investors who are ready to capitalize, accelerated surge for demand.
Mm.
Um, but this is the equation that allows us to do this, which is a SKU every few years, not a SKU every year. Reduce it sort of normalizes our labor spend and allows us to build it in the US, keep it under $1,000. And we also think the trade-off is something that customers are going to be very excited about. Because here's what I can tell you. I'm not going to give you a new phone every year, but when you come to our website, what you're going to see is normal people like us who are like, hey, I'm Bill. I put the camera in your phone. If you got a problem with the camera, send it back. And Bill's kids have like dental insurance and have like normal lives. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like we think that is something that will matter a lot to customers, at least the customers that we want to service.
Mhm.
So that's the trade-off. We are compromising on our margin for now, and we're gonna see how to make this work in the next gen, et cetera. But we think this is the right thing to do for now.
Yeah, and it is the right thing to do. this is my experience in having covered tech for going on 10 years now and using some of this tech. I was in beta programs for, I think the oldest one I can think of was WhatsApp before it was coming to BlackBerry back then. So that and being from the business world myself, I also get this. I always tell people the money's not in the hardware, it's in the software. And the longevity of it can make or break the hardware. That's kind of what doomed BlackBerry, that they were not able to shift fast enough to a whole new operating and user experience. Yeah, go ahead. You can chime in.
No, you're right. You're right on the money. So so
Yeah.
there's another benefit for us too of approaching it this way. When you are on one hardware platform for a while, it allows you to really stabilize the OS. Whereas I've been in an environment where you're releasing 3 new SKUs every year at least, and you end up with this crazy whack-a-mole where like all your energy is going to like stabilization versus new features, and it's a very hard tension point. Whereas here, I think this for us, this is a better recipe for our customers, which is we can optimize up to add features, add feature. We're on the same SKU. Eventually we'll be on a couple SKUs, whatever, but we're just in parallel baking the OS. We're not having crazy regressions everywhere. I mean, little things are to be expected, but
Mhm.
when you're not on a new SKU every year, the amount you're having to manage for the OS, it goes down a lot.
Yeah.
So we think this is a better ingredient for just customer experience and longevity in general. So yeah, we're hoping that this aligns for our customers.
Yeah, and I don't think people understand just how much is involved in the OS, particularly when just using Android as an example. Samsung was notoriously known for bogging down the Android base because of what they used to call TouchWiz before they moved to a more minimalistic experience, which was a one UI as they call now. And in that experience, just it still involves a lot of optimization for the hardware. But when you take just all the optimizations from these OEM manufacturers, just go based to Android, people didn't realize, you can get more performance out of your phone without all this stuff being put on top of it. My favorite Android is an HTC One M8. And I think it's 12 years old now, and I'm running Android 12, and that last
Mm.
Android update was probably Android 5. So I had to de-Google it and just flash Lineage OS on it, and it performs very well for the deteriorating battery and very old hardware specs, and it can hold up. So I did tell my audience, because when I had Iran Karpin and Liran on the show, they one of the main questions everybody wanted me to ask them, what about Unplugged Phone 2? And of course I asked him, and he said, well, it's something that we have in the mind because we want to get to that point of Unplugged Phone 2. So what I had told my audience was, I'm not in a hurry to see Unplugged Phone 2. I want to see the OS and the user experience fully realized, because by the time they drop, at the time, because you guys relabeled it, we'll talk about the refresh in a moment, but LibreDOS 2.0 and Android 14 dropped by the end of last year. I mentioned to everybody, now it feels like it's a fully realized phone operating system wise. There were still some things that needed to be plugged in, as you said, they need to be focused, and I'm seeing that with the latest firmware I've been testing. But it showed me that that's the progress that I wanted to see. I'm not excited about another phone. I want them to lock down the first one first, and then build off that.
I you're speaking our language. We feel very aligned with this perspective. Do small things well and then big things. So we don't want to rush to amplify something that's not ready. We want to get the experience right. We want to get the basics right, and then we will worry about expansion. So yeah, for us, it's just about focus. It's about getting the basics right. And this approach is going to make that much more straightforward. So we're excited about a second device. It's not the priority at the moment.
Gotcha. And I do have a few questions that I want to toss at you
Sure,
here, especially with I don't know how much more time you have. So you
I got
tell
time,
me.
buddy.
All right, cool. Because it wasn't on these questions that I sent, that I told you I wanted to ask you, but I did want to ask you this one, because when in speaking about on open source stuff, you said earlier about, I think you mentioned they're going to be publishing more of the open source codes of the
Yes.
stuff that you're providing. Okay, because I know that was a big deal for those in the privacy security space. So, what has Unplugged already published, and what can people expect over the next few months?
More will be revealed here. We're going to have some announcements very soon. I will say we are just in the process of open sourcing all the layers of the operating system. We've already open sourced the kernel. More is coming to life presently. Um, there are also a handful of projects from the firewall to the photos product to the password manager. So I think you're going to be seeing a lot in the coming months. And we're preparing communications for all of this. So this is a big priority for us. And we think people are totally justified in having questions about this, and we think they're correct and it's important. So
Yeah.
our view is our goals are completely aligned here. And the challenge for us has been in the past speed of getting things to market to be able to discover what works in customers' hands
Mhm.
versus preparing and optimizing a project for open source release, which involves a lot of cleanup and optimization and everything. So, we're trying to strike that balance, and we feel like we're in the right zone, which is, iterate in market, optimize and open source what works, and then keep moving.
Okay. Now for the global rollout, how's that looking? Because I think the last one was just Canada, and we haven't heard anything since.
We are days away, literally, like might be next couple days, from achieving our CE, which is the certification for Europe and UK. So that's the entire EU,
Wow.
which we're very excited about. For now, we'll be shipping from the US. And if we get sufficient demand signal there, which we hope to, then we'll explore distribution there. There's a lot of opportunities for distribution there.
Yeah.
Um, and we're very excited. We're getting we get a lot of emails from European potential customers. I mean, it's like a lot. It's one of the main categories of contacts we get is when are you going to be available? And we're not surprised because we see a lot of the same issues that we've seen in the United States happening in European countries right now. So we're excited to service the European markets, and that will be live literally in the coming days. I mean, we're at most a week out, so
Wow, a
it's
week
landing.
out from the time of recording this. Wow, that's awesome to hear because that's also one of the number one questions I get from all of us. When is it coming to Australia? When is it coming to this country in Europe? I said, well, I'm looking for the EU rollout. If they get one, they'll get all. So that's what I told them.
Yes.
So I promised the audience I would ask that. Along those lines, though, um, has there been testing to see if the phone can get working on phone calls with Verizon again? I know that's been a point of
Yeah,
contention.
we're really interested in Verizon, and that remains an open possibility. I would say this is similar. A lot of these things are related in terms of strategy, which is, we want to be optimized before we amplify. I want to get things right before we invest in more customers,
Mhm.
right? So I think Verizon remains a possibility, and we're very eager to be in Verizon, and we think Verizon's great. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I know, and I've spoken to people, and I've been with the engineers at Verizon before they even rolled out their 5G. So it's really cool to see all that stuff works. But one thing that I also know is how do I put it lightly? They're a bit tyrannical when it comes to trying to whitelist the product because there are GSM phones that can work on them, but they're I don't know what it is about them and controlling what comes in, what goes out. But with the
And that's their platform and their prerogative, and we
yeah,
want to work with them and get great results together. So,
yeah. It
we think Verizon's great, and we're optimistic. It's a huge portion of the American market. We have great partnerships with other networks like Patriot Mobile. We do a lot of co-marketing with them. They've been a great
mhm.
partner. And they represent, I think, a lot of the same beliefs that we're discussing. We're also really excited about a new partnership with a data sim provider called Pond. So this is cool. We're going to be sharing this very soon. But
Mhm.
we've designed a product with them, which is an IoT sim. So you can receive SMS on it for like two-factor things like that, but it's not for phone calls. It's just to run apps.
Dude,
And they have dramatically minimized for us and only us the data retention. So they're down to location for billing purposes within the 30-day cycle, and then it's gone.
wow.
So imagine being on a plan where your location is basically retrievable from the network you're on up to 30 days and no longer. which is a big step forward. And we see many more steps forward with partnerships like this. But this, we think, is a great sort of first flag to plant. So, and we want to do things like this with lots of networks. We really believe in innovating through these privacy minimizing, constitution challenging standards that we've accepted. I
Mhm.
just think it's worth mentioning, the phone system is not designed to track us. It's like, remember back in the day, you get like a phone bill and your parents would be like, "Hey, did you make this call?" Like,
Yes.
that's why these systems record where our phones were, because they're still based on the same billing systems. I don't think people realize this. The
Mm,
goal's not to monitor everyone. That may be a byproduct.
mm,
Um, so we are very eager to work with and develop with and innovate with the networks ways to minimize that, up to well, there's a lot of things we have coming in the future that we're very excited about in this area, so that the network does not become a repository of your location. Because I don't think people realize, when you have all of these things from apps to your cell provider recording your location forever,
mm,
that turns into a database of who went to church, who went to the gun shop, who went to the mosque, who went to the crypto convention. Like, that's not good.
mhm.
And we think people should be able to associate freely without these records being kept.
Yeah, amen to that. And going back to the network thing, though, one of the things that I did for the Unplugged phone during my testing, I was running it on Verizon, so it was working, and I was doing a
Yes.
speed test and all that, and it was great. It's just that by, I would say winter 2024, that's when phone calls just stopped. It wouldn't bother calling. It would just be SMS and MMS work and data. So that's why I had hoped that maybe the engineers might be able to find a way around it. But until then, I also told my audience, this is more on Verizon than it is on you guys,
This
correct?
is, I'll just put it this way. It's not about any, you know, it's our phone. It is possible to make it work on Verizon. And we think we hope that will happen in time. And we're eager for that to happen.
Yeah, and a lot of us are too, because I got, hey, did your Verizon phone stop working? Your phone stop working on Verizon? It's like, well, I reported it, so yes, definitely. It's along those lines about Android 15 timeline. How are you guys with that? Because it is the Android update more important than, say, the security patches and your refinements? Because will we be seeing Android 15 anytime soon?
Yeah, let me get back to you on specific timeframes for this fall. But we have a rapid release schedule right now,
Hmm.
and I again, like, we're getting these updates as they emerge. So I think we should talk roadmap. Let me shoot you an email with some roadmap that you can
Okay,
release,
sure.
with some more firm commitments there. But I would say, again, at the moment, we're like really in customer experience and early adoption optimization.
Hmm.
But again, let me get back to you with some firm dates on this.
Yeah. No, and like I said, I'm liking which direction you guys are going. So that's good. It's just for, I know for a lot of us in the tech space, it matters to us. It shows us continued development, but the user experience, and you come from the Apple world. So was this your influence, or you guys looked at Apple and said, we like the look and feel, and I think it'll help people because it does feel more like an Apple influence look, which is not a bad
I
thing.
think I think our perspective is that the Apple experience and the Android experience each have advantages. There's things we want to learn from both, and there's things we want to do different. You
Mm,
know, I think our impression was that if we zoom the lens out, if we before we get to that particular feature, like, if we zoom the lens out and go to first principles, our observation was, and especially after we did this test, I don't know if you've read this test we did with Raxus, but when
I
we
did.
did that test, I was like, man, like, why don't I know this? Why isn't my phone showing me this?
Hmm.
And that's when it really hit us. Like, we're basically trying to prove a negative. We're telling you something that your phone's not doing, and you just need to guess that and believe that or something.
Hmm.
so, so that's what began for us this idea of a top level dashboard. And there's different ways to present that. There's different ways to present that. And what we've been looking for is a way to have normal, day to day, everyday driver, easy to use phone with easy to access, clear signals about things that are really important. And you'll notice that, like, in that dashboard that you swipe to, it has this firewall number, which for me, let's see today. I'm at, my goodness, I'm at 2,600 here. Oh, 2,609 by 1:10 in the afternoon.
Well,
Um, I know, it's crazy. But so that's one area where we felt like, man, there needs to be something top level here. And we explored, like, should this be above the launcher all the time? And our view was like, it's important, but I don't want it to get in the way. So we were looking for a way to have like ease of access and instant answers
mhm,
without getting in the way. Some of that, like another feature on there that I love, it's really very valuable for me, is this time away feature, which our design team really kind of nailed this. They worked very closely with engineering, and they were sort of iterating through this like firewall, app activity, blah blah, all these things, and they landed on this idea that I think is just brilliant. Um, this was Joanna and Nicole from our team who were just really really sharp, and um, I remember we had a meeting. They're like, we have this thing. It's a little weird. We want to talk to you about it. Like, what if instead of screen time, it's time away?
mm,
So it's not about the phone. It's about you and the benefit of not using the phone. And I was like, as Kat on our team said it, I was like instantly in love with this idea. I was like, yes, like this is what I need. And for me, like I have just found in practice, this is a game changer for me because I have 6 kids. We have dinner every day. Dinner's very important for our family, and I have a problem of being on my phone. I don't want to be on my phone. I look at my phone. I get hooked into this cycle of working all day, and then I'm like checking the email, and it's disgusting and dehumanizing, and I don't
mm,
want to do that. It's very helpful for me to have this. How long since my last opening of the phone? At the top level. And I think you're going to see that soon. We're aiming to bring that to the lock screen as well. So you don't have to open the phone to see because, I love going to dinner with my family here. My wife cooks a beautiful dinner. And at the end, I turn the phone over and it says I haven't used it in 70 minutes. And I'm like,
mm.
yes. Like same thing. I go to church, and I don't want to look at the phone. I like having the reward of accumulating something that's good, which is my time away from the phone.
Yes.
And we feel like we're uniquely positioned to do this because we're the only real operating system and phone combo that doesn't make money based on how much you use the phone.
Hmm.
We have no economic interest in you using the phone. So
Yeah.
our view is don't use the phone, put it down, get back
Yeah.
to your life, get back to your family.
Yeah.
Use the phone when you need to, and I use it all the time. But we really want people to build this muscle of like, put it down, And
Yeah.
anyway, so this dashboard we provide, left of the home screen. The purpose of that is something that evolved out of these sort of principle driven customer needs we were trying to solve. I want to have this information, but I don't want it to like control my experience. I want it easily available, and I think we're going to see that evolve more over time. And thank God we have like incredible designers and engineers who can bring this stuff to life. So I think you're
Absolutely.
going to like where we're heading, and we're excited.
Yeah, I'm excited for people to get their hands on the official release of the OS. Those that currently have the phone, I told them this software is coming to you guys. I'm already testing it, just letting you guys know. And you'll, it's gonna be awesome when you finally get it. It's a whole new experience. But along with the Unplugged experience, it came all these services that were unique to Unplugged, just like this dashboard. So what does it mean now for the Unplugged is suite of apps? What are we looking at
Sure.
in that case? Because some of those were cross-platform.
We are I would say this. We are deepening the value for customers in the software suite. I'm also deprioritizing horizontal expansion onto other platforms. That doesn't mean that these apps won't run on other platforms. It means that we might be exploring more like web app directions and things like this for some experiences.
Okay.
And this will be sort of a step by step deal. I would say at this point we need to crawl before we can walk. We need a phone that is a great phone experience. That's our first goal.
Hmm.
I think we need to, and by the way, part of that is this killer software layer that we build that is unique to us, right?
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. But we want to nail it on our platform first. And then I think we can be concerned about what I would describe as like horizontal expansion to other platforms.
Hmm.
But I would just say, like, at this moment, if we're releasing products that require adoption by your friends on other platforms, we're probably picking the wrong battles today.
Mm.
I think the battles we need to fight today are someone orders a phone, the phone arrives, they open the phone. Can they quickly, in a day, comfortably transition to the phone? That's where we're going to focus. My goal right now is make switching to the phone as smooth, easy, effortless, successful, and delightful as possible. That's our North Star metric. We have ways of measuring that, right? But like that's what we want. And we'll the other stuff over time. Um, there's partnerships that we have coming online. I mentioned the pond thing. There's crypto stuff we're very excited about that's coming down the pipe. But we're focusing first on experiences on our phone, on our OS, and then we will be looking to see ways that those can expand outwards.
Okay, and I think along those lines, because of the new look and feel of the phone, you guys got a whole new rebrand going on just for a fresh launch. Night and day difference, by the way, because now it's eye popping. I can see the philosophical change in the approach of like it just feels more positive and
Okay.
like you want to, and it's just convenient to use it. And like this whole
Thank you.
thing, just like the very minimal thing that you explained about screen time versus time away. Yeah, screen time is like judging you for how long you've been
Yes.
using the phone, and now time away is like you, and how you explain is like, yeah, I was away from my phone for a while, and that has really been a thing with trying to get to digital minimalism and detoxing. It's not just from social media; it's from tech itself. I do feel that it shouldn't be that it's like you're letting go of a drug. It shouldn't be that way, even though it feels a lot like that. But it's just this whole rewarding feels like, I don't need you 24/7 in my life. And I think it's translating. I like that.
Thank you for that feedback. Yeah, we want a feature that celebrates something positive rather than bemoans something negative.
Mm.
And I feel like screen time, like I have never felt like there's good news on screen. I'm like, ugh, like, I use the phone that much. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like it's not encouraging. Whereas
Yeah.
these moments I'm describing with my family and church for me, I mean, bro, these are like daily victories for me. Like, I mean, these are not small things, right? Like
Hmm.
actually showing up at dinner with my kids and not looking at my phone and showing them that their father will respect their family time. This is like that's not a small change. Like
Mm.
that's points on the board for my goals with my family, right?
Mm.
So again, like I feel like these little reframes can actually have a big impact. Um, because these phones are so personal and we're on them all the time. And that's why I think like, we don't want to make these big compromise. At least I'm representative of a customer base that doesn't want to make these compromises anymore.
Mm. Yeah, and it's along with the refresh. Are we looking at also some refreshed accessories? Because the old phone, because based on the renders that I've seen, the new version doesn't have a logo at the bottom, at least not the new one. So will there be a refresh in accessories without the
Well,
cutout for
this
the
is my
logo and
new
things like that?
wallet case,
Which
which
I'm
I've
getting
beaten up
soon.
like crazy. Yeah. So by the way, I love this product, and I use this a lot. So I have I have a card under the phone, in between the phone and the case. I have a license and then a credit card. I'm still able to charge on wireless charger.
Nice.
And then the top card is just a credit card, and I tap to pay with that. So that's been a great sort of bridge feature for me until we accomplish the digital wallet. And yes, we are deprioritizing that inscription on the back of the device.
Okay. Yeah. And when can people expect, because when we're recording this is early September, so when can people expect the new batch of phones to be able to hit the market?
We are shipping mid-month, so I would say it's the 8th today. We're recording on the 8th. We will not be entering the week of the 22nd, I don't believe, without shipping. So we're very, very, very close. I mean, the polishing touches are happening right now. Boxes are arriving, phones are going into boxes, OSs are being flashed. That's all happening.
That's exciting. And
Yeah.
this includes Best Buy or just unplugged.com?
Best Buy is going live. Yeah, so we'll be shipping through Best Buy. Like you can actually get the device. You can order on Best Buy. It's just on back order right now.
Mm.
So we're live on Best Buy. We have some really exciting marketing projects with Best Buy coming soon that we're super pumped about. They've been a great partner. So Best Buy's going live. All of this within this month is happening. And as you mentioned, this is the new box, so
Yeah, there it is.
it is noticeable.
Mhm.
I love this. Same construction, so it's like this kind of high end magnet experience. But it's dope.
Yeah, yeah, it's nice.
It's really fun. I think it's gonna look. It's something like it shows up and it's like delightful. It feels fun,
Yeah.
and different. Um, so our design team did a great job with this, and yeah. So I think that the goal of some of the design choices were not just around like, hey, how do we cosmetically give this a facelift? It was really like we wanted to really clarify the customer benefits and experiences and bring those to life consistently, so it all felt like it was coming from one company. And um, the phone, I think in the past it has like a very strong security vibe, which it should, and
Hmm.
I think that kind of expressed itself in a way that for non-security people was like a little daunting. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
so we anyway. I think we're sort of really finding our voice right now between bringing these features to life in a very easy to use and smooth experience.
Yes, and that I very much said along my coverage because I did several live streams just answering questions. I felt like the support team for Unplugging Away, but that's how I was able to get feedback to you guys too. I was a voice for the people, kind of a bridge there. So I was honored to be that. Until and I keep saying until I see Reddit forums that are actually support, or if I see anything on, oh my goodness, just what is the name? The developers. I'm gonna NDX developers. I can't believe it. I'm drawing a blank right now. But until I see it there, I'm gonna keep doing what I do. But it's been. I very much said that the first version of what you guys had very much felt like early adopters first gen product. When we got to LibreOffice 2.0, it felt like a more fleshed out product, and now we're seeing what feels like a generational leap. And I'm excited to see all that. I'm excited for people to see what I've been using. Before anything else, this last question I want to ask you is about the improvements you guys are making to the cameras. I think you should explain
Yep.
to the people so they can know, because I've been testing it, and I can tell you that I have seen the differences in the experience.
I'm super glad to see that, and it's the beginning. I think what we found is that we made some really good choices with our hardware for the cameras, but we were not using software that lived up to the promise of the hardware.
Mm,
We have this very large 108 megapixel rear main camera, which is a huge sensor that lets in a lot of light. And we still have more tuning to do, but I think we found that we were suboptimally arranged in the firmware layer. So, you have like the sensor, you have the app. In between are layers of software basically that interpolate the signal from the sensor into a picture that you see. And you know this is very sensitive, slow tuning where like you fix one thing and then something else gets out of whack, right?
mm,
It's not very straightforward, but we invested a lot of time and effort into fixing what we saw as the first layer of problems. And I would say, generally speaking, we had an exposure um, configuration that was not optimized for our sensor.
mm,
And the result of this was we were letting in way too much light. You would get a lot of blur. It was like a slow exposure. So you get blur on subjects. If the device was moving at all, the environment would feel out of focus. This is sort of what we call ghosting.
mm,
So we've taken a big step with this. um, and it's really directionally getting to where we want. So the way we comp these is we have a system where we take a newer Samsung, a newer iPhone, our up phone, and we do these sort of side by side tests in repeated scenarios, identical images, and we look for differences and then look to see where we can make improvements and get towards parity. My takeaway right now, objectively, when I look at this honestly, is where we are today with optimizations to the front and rear main camera. Again, just the beginning of the journey. Where we are today is, I'm feeling like we're sort of 80% towards a newer iPhone. What does that mean for me? That means that the median photo that I take generally is of similar quality. I have some, but not as many amazing photos as I have in most scenarios as a newer iPhone. There's one area where I'm finding our current configuration is actually outcompeting the iPhone, which is low light portrait photography.
Mm.
And I'm really encouraged here. So we're sort of marching on a new journey here, which is how do we retain these low light benefits while getting marginally better in some of these mid-range daylight scenarios where we're still getting some blow. I mean, it's not terrible, but we're still getting some blowout that I don't love. Like if there's a strong sun behind in an image, that section of the frame will go kind of white. Now, I will say we're looking into both firmware and app level enhancements. And I think that's this next generation that we're going to see are going to be trying to bring enhancements from the app and the firm. And this is where Apple's great at this. We're going to be looking to sort of bring these together because tuning the firmware, it's not just expensive; it's just very slow, and it can be very costly in terms of experience. Like you fix something and you don't realize you just created a huge other problem in another scenario. So
Yep.
I would say our future here is going to look like a few two main issues. One, can we add some useful AI in the camera stack to determine I'm in lighting scenario A versus lighting scenario B pick rather than a single. So I think that's going to be an area we explore. At the same time, we're going to be coming at the problem from the app side and offering some post filtering or just doing some automatic post filtering to
Mm.
optimize, which also could be situational, not just generic across the board. So
Mm.
main thing is I'm very optimistic. This was uh, this last set of improvements for me got us out of problem areas that were chronic and into, for me, like a very easy to use daily great camera. I get incredible pictures of my kids. I take a lot of pictures of my kids,
Mm.
and I'm sort of back on that horse. And now that we have the cloud service in, I'm just like snap, 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 snap. Which gets to the last point. We'll be bringing the camera to the lock screen, so you can access the camera directly from the lock screen, which is,
Oh,
I think, a
nice.
very important feature. Um, so yeah, that's coming soon. We're working on that lock screen customization, but I think we'll see that this year for sure.
Excellent. We covered a lot of ground on this, and I'll let you have the final say. So we're going to be wrapping it up here for the audience. Don't hang up, but I'll let you have the final say. I don't think I have anything more to add other than that I just want to get some of these things in my hands and test it already. But but I am excited to see what I'm using right now, and I hope that people that haven't got it yet will be able to see soon enough because it's a whole new experience, and it just feels like again a whole new experience, and I'm loving it.
Oh man, we're so grateful. The team's gonna be really happy to hear this. And we're just so excited for the collaboration, Andres. And for us, everything is about customer experience. Like
Mhm.
that's it. And one of the things that I'm not sure people fully understand is like we have a team of people who are here to help solve problems. They're great. They're super responsive. I'm often on the phone with customers that like we'll do, like we're motivated, right?
Mhm.
So one thing I do want to highlight is that, like, when people are facing questions, they should be contacting us. We have folks who can help. We really, this is another area where we really want to differentiate is, we think having people from here who are understand the sort of ins and outs of maybe getting onto a phone from the internet for the first time. Most Americans have been buying their phone in stores for a long time,
Mhm.
right? So we want to make it very easy, and we just want to encourage people to reach out. Contact is available on the site. There's information in the box, and we just really want to lift that up because, what we've seen, especially with the new software releasing. So you're going to see, Andres, a new Photos uploader for iOS and Android, which is basically going to do the job of pushing all the content up to the cloud, which then syncs. And a new Switch app, which is going to move contacts and passwords
Mhm.
over peer to peer. Once you get over these hurdles and then get your apps lined up and your passwords are already on, it's pretty quick. You're off to the
Yeah.
races. So we just want to help people get over that hurdle, and once that happens, it's pretty smooth.
Yeah. That's awesome. And people can learn more by going to unplugged.com, I believe. That's the website.
That's it. Unplugged.com. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, folks. So you guys know the drill. Anything or anything was spoken about here, I'll leave references in the show notes. For the links also will be in the show notes, including the social medias they can follow. Instagram and X being the more active ones. Joe, this has been a pleasure. Don't hang up. But Joe, thank you so much for signing off for everybody else. It was great having you on. And I look forward to seeing what you guys are doing.
Thanks, brother.